If you look at it, Middle East is facing a lot of problems. Most of the countries are not in a position to handle the problems, and they can't solve the problems themselves because for a pretty long time they were dependent on external powers. At the same time, the external powers have been playing a role not to the benefit of the regional power. That's a reading of the regional countries. So what is interesting is, there is a recognition that the regional powers cannot solve the problems, but they need external powers to help them. And both sides will have to work in harmony. I think that is what the larger consensus of the panel is. If you look at the people who are capable of solving the problem, one could largely identify US and Russia. These are the two players. But for a variety of reasons, US does not have a good relation with some of the countries. But Russia, on the other hand, is talking to all the major stakeholders in the region. Egypt, Israel, Iran, Syria, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. And if you look at the Palestinians, and Russia is the only power which is actually engaging with all of them. So if you have to make a comparison, Russia is in a slightly better position to influence the events on the ground than the US is. And the second thing is, US administration is still new and the team is yet to be in place. So that gives Russia an advantage in trying to resolve certain problems. But on its own, Russia can't do it. Russia needs the cooperation of the regional players as well as the international community, largely the United States. Because a couple of years ago, Russia was dealing only with Syria and Iran. At that time, it was very simpler. But today, Russia is engaging with other players, so therefore, Russia will have to accommodate the interest of Saudi Arabia vis-a-vis Iran and Turkey vis-a-vis Syria. And that puts a much challenging task to Russia. But what my understanding is, because of its engagement with all the players, Russia could actually take the lead in finding a much stable Middle East in cooperation with the new administration. The administration is still in these early stages. Russia can actually offer certain, what I would call the grand bargain. And not only in the Middle East, but in a much wider world, whereby you could relatively stabilize the region. This is not like the Cold War condition. Cold War condition, Soviet Union and US can bilaterally solve the problems. But today you need the regional players as a stakeholders, but in tandem, what I would call in harmony. Both the regional players and the great powers could cooperate and probably minimize some of the tensions in the region, if not resolve them. India has a large interest in the region. Geographically, it's closer, and we have a long economic relations with them, and bulk of our oil energy security comes from the region. We have about more than 7 million Indian population works in the region. So India has an enormous interest in peace and stability of the region. At the same time, India is not in a position or not interested in playing a role in that sense. So what I would suggest is a higher degree of engagement beyond trade and commerce, higher political engagement with major players in the region, but without trying to play a role. I think that would be too premature for India to take that kind of role, but higher level of engagement, yes. And the other thing I would suggest is once some of the crises slow down or resolve, India could be more active in reconstruction, in building human skills. Capacity building exercise, India could actually play a role, but that is only after the conflict resolved, not during the process of resolving a conflict. For a long time, the one-state solution was suggested by some of them, ignoring the state of Israel. Now you are having a counter-narrative of, you're talking about a one state without ignoring the Palestinian rights. I think both of them are not a sensible option. A two-state solution is probably the most viable one. But my understanding is, two problems are blocking them. The Palestinians do not have an internal unity. I think that is a precondition for the success of any national liberations movement in the world. Probably they have to resolve the internal differences to put a common front in negotiating. The second thing I would say that, focusing on settlement is not a sensible way. Probably they could more focus on the question of border. Once the border issue is resolved, then it becomes easy for the people who are living on the other side of the border to make one of the two choices. Either they can stay as a full citizen of a Palestinian state or move back to Israel. So I think rather than focusing on settlements, I would rather advise, focus had to be on the border question. Normally one tends to be a pessimist in the Middle East, because, things don't happen the way in which. But, what I'm noticing is there is the fact that so many actors are at least talking to one another. That's an indication that, people, there is a fatigue in the crisis, and people wanted to go beyond these crisis and violence and look for some sort of a resolution. I think that is what what I would call it's more like a concert where everyone is trying to be part of that larger game, which gives some hope. But the title says, will tomorrow come? Yes, it will come, but tomorrow may not be immediate. It may take, it may not be immediate tomorrow, and as we understand, it could be tomorrow, could be not a 24-hour time, maybe it could be months and years in that sense of the word.